They sent someone new. They always do. That's how this place works. One disappears, another arrives, the paperwork clears, the logs reset, and the tower waits. But what Ranger Colton Hayes stepped into wasn't just a post left empty. It was a position already occupied. Colton wasn't briefed. No mention of Harper, no incident history, just coordinates, supplies, and a message. Don't question the silence. Maintain radio protocol. The forest self-regulates. That was it. But within 4 hours of his arrival at Tower 9, the forest broke that silence and spoke first. At 10:47 p.m., he heard his own name whispered over the emergency frequency. He hadn't transmitted, hadn't powered the uplink. And yet, there it was. Colton, let me in. The voice wasn't his, but it knew how he thought. It asked questions before he formed them. It laughed at memories he never spoke aloud. And that first night, when he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the floorboards creaked with footsteps that matched his own breathing. One breath in, one step, one breath out, one step. It didn't matter if he held his breath. The footsteps kept going. What Colton didn't know, and none of them ever know, was that you don't inherit the tower. You inherit the memory of what it saw, and memory is dangerous out there because sometimes it walks. This is MindFuel. We bring you back to the places they told you to forget. We listen to the towers. We decode the static. Subscribe now. Because Evan Harper's story didn't end. It just found a new voice. Before Evan Harper ever stepped foot in Tower 9, before the night voices, before the eye shine, before the boot and the teeth and the clearing where no grass grew, he was pulled into a meeting he wasn't supposed to remember. Spring 2015, 7 years before the first confirmed incident. The setting wasn't dramatic. No black site, no unmarked vans, just a plain steel door on the lower level of the Clearwater Forestry Administrative Office. No windows, no recording allowed. Phones in sealed pouches. Inside, 3 men from Homeland Security, 2 from the Department of the Interior, and 1 representative Evan didn't recognize. A civilian. Unmarked badge. No name. He never introduced himself. Never spoke. Just sat in the corner and watched. There were 9 Rangers in that room. All veterans. All with more than a decade of service. Each one hand-picked. Not for rank, but for silence. They were given NDAs with federal clearances. No lawyers, no questions. Then the lights were dimmed, a projector screen lowered, and someone hit play. What they saw changed everything. Infrared drone footage, date stamped, October 6th, 2014. Captured over a no-fly zone east of the Loxa River in a burn-scarred valley classified as uninhabited. But the thermal data said otherwise. It showed movement, not above the ground, below it. Dozens of heat signatures, long, thin, serpentine, weaving through the root systems, never surfacing, never separating. Each measured at roughly 11 feet in length, but not consistent in form. Some flickered, others broke apart, then reformed. Almost like shadow stitched to heat. They pulsed through the forest floor like veins under skin, and they were fast, unnaturally fast. Too fast for burrowing mammals, too organized for coincidence. The footage ended. No one spoke for nearly a full minute. Then one of the officials cleared his throat and said, "These are what we call nocturnal non-mammalian entities." He never said creature, never said animal, and he never called them cryptids. He called them entities, like a classification, like a known quantity. Then he handed each ranger a sealed envelope. Inside, coordinates, tower assignments, and a single typed phrase at the bottom of every page. Do not acknowledge sightings to civilians under any circumstances. Maintain routine communication. Do not document heat anomalies. Your silence preserves public safety. Evan didn't sleep that night, and he never forgot the footage. He later wrote, "It wasn't the movement that scared me. It was the way they moved together, like they had purpose, like they knew where the drone was watching from, like they wanted to be seen." He asked one of the other rangers what he made of it, a man who'd worked Tower 7 for over 20 years. The ranger just looked at him and said, "You ever wonder why they don't let us dig past 18 inches? Evan never brought it up again. Not in his notes, not in official reports. But he carried it with him, silently, all the way to Tower 9. And when he saw that grassless circle, when he touched the cold dirt and pulled out teeth that didn't belong, when the boots of a man declared dead in 2017 surfaced without the man himself, he knew. He wasn't hallucinating. He wasn't unraveling. He'd been assigned to it. This wasn't a coincidence. It was containment, observation, a controlled burn without the fire. In one of his last voice memos, never logged in the official system, he whispered, "This is why they sent me. I'm not a ranger. I'm a witness." They knew it was coming back. We've acquired that 2015 drone footage. It was leaked by a whistleblower now living off-grid. We've had it verified by thermal imaging specialists and former DoD contractors. The movement patterns match the regions where towers began going dark. Tower 2, Tower 4, and now Tower 9. These weren't isolated incidents. They were test zones, and Evan Harper was never supposed to survive long enough to file a report. But he did, and he left behind enough fragments for us to piece together what's really been happening out there. This is MindFuel. We don't just tell stories. We bring forward what they tried to bury. Subscribe now, because the next chapter contains the final logs from Tower 9. And what they captured was not Evan. It just knew his face. Evan Harper had stopped trusting his memory. He'd stopped trusting the radio, the sensors, even the way the trees leaned when the wind picked up. But there was one thing left in Tower 9 that hadn't changed. Something older than the logs, older than the tower itself. A rusted lockbox, bolted to the underside of the main observation table. No one ever mentioned it in training. No field manual listed it. It wasn't digital. It didn't run on solar. It was just there, buried in dust, the key still taped beneath the drawer. Inside, Evan found 12 ranger notebooks, spanning nearly 4 decades. Some handwritten, some typed, all anonymous, all signed only with tower numbers, and all describing the same thing. The lull. That's what they called it. Rangers who had seen too much to pretend anymore. Men and women who stopped writing for headquarters and started writing for whoever would come next. The entries weren't frantic. They weren't dramatized. They were clinical, precise, and that made them worse. Tower 5, 1992. The birds left 3 nights ago. Winds still. Nothing moves after sunset. No moths, no spiders. Locals call it the lull. It's the pause before the real thing starts. Last time this happened, livestock turned up without eyes. 2 hikers never found. Tower 3, 2001. 4th day of quiet. Every deer I see is looking the wrong direction. Not away from me, away from something else. Something I can't see. Tower 7, 1986. No tree frogs, no pollen, no morning fog, like the forest knows what's coming, like it's trying to hide. Each of the logs followed the same pattern. First, unnatural silence. Second, wildlife avoidance. Third, light distortion, where objects appear closer or farther than they are. And then, the feeding. Evan sat with those notebooks for hours, cross-referencing sightings, timing, coordinates. Some logs described circles of dead ground, just like the ones he found. Some mentioned mimicry, something that called out in a ranger's voice just before they vanished. And all of them, every last one, ended with the same final sentence. "They're hungry again." He began copying them by hand, word for word, as if writing it down might protect him, as if knowing what came next might somehow stop it. But knowing the fire doesn't stop it from burning. It only tells you when to run. And Evan had nowhere left to go. He flipped back to one particular entry, Tower 12, dated 1979. I stayed quiet. I followed the rules. I ignored the flickers at the edge of the scope. But it still came. Not fast, not loud, just inevitable. It climbed the tower without touching the ladder. It smiled with my teeth. I jumped. I hit the ground, but I never stopped hearing it inside me. The rest of the page was blacked out, smudged with charcoal, illegible. Evan closed the book, stared out the observation window, and that's when he noticed the wind had stopped again. The lull had returned, and the pattern had reached its end. Tower logs from across 3 states confirm the same cycle. The birds go first, then the insects, then the color drains from the trees, not visibly, but felt. And finally, a silence so deep you can hear your own blood move. And just before the tower is swallowed, it always records the same sound. A voice, whispered, software close, calling the ranger by name. Evan's tower would go dark in less than 24 hours. But in that final night, something answered the mic. Something that wanted to be heard. Something that had read the logs too. And when the next ranger team arrived, the notebooks were gone. The lockbox ripped from the bolts. In its place, scratched into the wood with a piece of antler. I kept their stories alive. Now they wear mine. This is MindFuel. We track what vanishes when the radio cuts to static. We gather what's left when silence wins. Subscribe now. Because what answered Evan Harper's final transmission wasn't looking for help. It was hunting a voice to wear. The last transmission from Evan Harper ended at 3:14 a.m. No scream, no static, just a whisper buried under wind. There at the stairs, Command flagged it, then buried it, filed it under equipment malfunction, deleted the access logs, scrubbed his name from the system. But towers can't just erase people, and nature doesn't forget that easily, especially not up there. 2 weeks later, a new group of fire lookout trainees arrived at the Clearwater District helipad. Seasonal hires, 3 total. Fresh, out of orientation, no field experience, no knowledge of Evan Harper, no mention of Tower 9. They were assigned to Tower 10, located just 4.5 miles from where Evan vanished. Standard protocol, standard training. They were told to stay in pairs, but on their second night, one of them broke routine. Thomas Eberly, 23 years old, new to the Forest Service, quiet, observant, no disciplinary history. He was last seen walking out of the sleeping quarters at 1:37 a.m., fully dressed, no gear, no flashlight, just walking. The team didn't report him missing until after sunrise, assumed he went to relieve himself. Standard lapse. But when he didn't return by 5 o'clock and the radio remained silent, they checked the security feed. Tomas emerges from the barracks, calm, composed, head tilted slightly upward, like listening to something above the trees. He walks straight out into the forest, no hesitation, no signs of struggle. His arms hang loose at his sides. 30 feet out, he pauses. Then, something moves behind him. Shape 1, crawling on all fours. No sound. Pale limbs, too long for a man. Joints bending the wrong way. Its shoulders scrape the earth, yet it moves like liquid. Shape 2, Half the size, almost childlike, no head visible, just a twitching motion, as if following scent. Shape 3, tallest, delayed. It follows with deliberate, exaggerated movements, one limb at a time, but before it disappears behind the tree line, it stops and turns toward the camera. There was no face, just stretched, leathery skin, tight across where features should be, as if it had once worn a human face and discarded it. Its head twitched, like a radar dish adjusting, and for a moment, only a few seconds, its skin pulsed. Not from breath, from sound, vibrating in rhythm with the tower's wind sensor, as if listening, as if the thing knew it was being watched. And then it turned and disappeared into the dark. A ground search was launched by 9 a.m. No signs of Thomas, no trail, no clothing, not even footprints. The only thing recovered was a scrap of canvas shoved into the bark of a cedar tree 200 yards east. It was part of his uniform patch. But here's the part that never made it into the incident report. It wasn't torn, it was peeled, and inside the fibers, microscopic analysis revealed something strange. Teeth marks, but not mammal, not even reptile, segmented, in rows, like the mouth parts of a deep-sea creature. In the center of the patch, barely visible to the naked eye, something had been scratched into the fabric with a claw or bone fragment. He followed the wrong voice. The other 2 recruits were evacuated. Tower 10 was sealed off. The camera feed was pulled offline. But the footage exists. We've seen it. And others have too. And every person we've shown it to, they say the same thing after that third shape turns to the camera. I think it saw me. If you're wondering why they still send people out there, it's not negligence. It's not oversight. It's bait. A routine designed to draw attention away from what's really being monitored. Because they don't need to find it anymore. It knows where the towers are, and it waits for the ones who wander. This is MindFuel. We investigate what the manuals won't print. We archive what the satellites try to delete. Subscribe now. Because next, Tower 9 transmits again. But there's no one left alive to press the button. Time does not behave the same in Tower 9. We verified that through timestamps, camera feeds, sensor logs, but Evan Harper didn't need equipment to know he was losing grip, because time wasn't slipping, it was being taken. At first, it was small, 10-minute gaps, a missed meal, a forgotten sentence halfway through writing it. Then it escalated. July 29th. Evan writes, "Just woke up with the water boiling dry, no memory of lighting the stove, cabin reeks of sulfur, no birds today, ears ringing." He checked his watch. It read 6:42 a.m. He looked at the radio clock, 3:17 p.m. He checked again, 9:06 a.m. They kept shifting, as if time itself was looping inside the tower. He scratched the correct time into the wall with a knife, then set a timer for 10 minutes. When it beeped, he looked at the wall. The numbers were gone. The wood was untouched. He tried to sleep, just for a few hours. But when he opened his eyes, he was already outside, standing on the catwalk, in bare feet, bleeding from both ears. There's no record of how he got there. No door opened. No steps taken. He didn't remember rising. He only remembered waking to the sensation of wind inside his skull, not on it, in it. The logs after that get strange, fractured, sentences repeat. Some are written over themselves like someone else was trying to rewrite his thoughts. Then, the voices return. 2AA. The tower's backup radio, unplugged, no power, crackles once. Then a voice comes through, not distorted, not layered with static, clear, calm, familiar, his own voice. "I'm already inside." He didn't respond, didn't write anything. just sat down in the far corner of the cabin and stared at the receiver. It never spoke again. But from that moment on, Evan refused to enter the center of the room. He circled the perimeter, kept to the corners, like the middle had somehow become occupied. He set up mirrors facing every wall, used strips of broken glass from a cracked compass, arranged them like sentries, watching the inside of the tower when he wouldn't. And, in the last image ever captured from the interior motion sensor, taken at 3:33 a.m., there's a second shadow, tall, still, directly behind him. He kept repeating one phrase in his final notes over and over, across different pages and on the underside of the bed frame. Don't answer if it uses my voice. Don't answer if it uses my voice. Don't answer if it uses my voice. By the end, Evan wasn't writing reports. He was trying to warn himself, because the voice had learned the cadence, the inflection, even the pauses. It didn't mimic, it inhabited. And when it spoke again, it didn't come from the radio. It came from inside the tower walls. The logs go silent after that. No more entries, no sensor pings. But the mic, the one buried in the ceiling insulation, recorded the final exchange. You don't belong here. I was here before you. You left the door open. And then, silence. No wind, no breath, no heartbeat. Just the click of the mic powering down. Tower 9 was found intact, but the walls were wrong. Each surface had a faint indentation, like something pressed outward from inside the wood. And in the center of the room, burned into the floorboards, was a phrase, "There's no one left to return." This is MindFuel. We archive the voices that never stop speaking. We chase the echo through what others leave behind. Subscribe now. Because what happens next is no longer a warning. It's a replication. It began with static, not just on Evan's radio, but across 6 towers simultaneously. Unscheduled transmissions, distorted voices, bursts of unfiltered heat signatures streaming across old analog monitors that hadn't flickered in years. Tower 2, Tower 6, Tower 9. All reported the same thing in under 5 minutes. Movement in the treetops. Lights in the canopy. Shapes where there shouldn't be any shapes. And then, one by one, the calls stopped. No static, no disconnection. Just gone. Like the towers had never been there. At 2:12 a.m., the sky opened. A government chopper, not Forest Service, not DHS, appeared overhead. No lights, no insignia. Just matte black metal and an external speaker repeating 2 words in a mechanical tone. Emergency extraction. Evan watched it descend near Tower 8, where a ranger named Carter had made the last coherent call from the South Ridge. They lowered a harness. One body was lifted. Fast, too fast for protocol. And then, gunfire. Muffled at first, then desperate. Short bursts, followed by one long spray into what appeared on camera to be empty air. But the bullets hit something. You can see it on infrared. An outline. A blur. Recoiling. Too tall. Too narrow. Too many limbs. It shimmered like heat distortion. Then blinked out. The chopper rose fast. Too fast. Uncoordinated, panicked. It banked hard north and disappeared into cloud cover. No further contact. No call sign logged. No confirmation of where it landed. Evan recorded all of it from Tower 9. Through the scope. His field log becomes less like documentation and more like confession. They're out. They're feeding now. And they don't want the meat. They want what's inside the eyes. They want to wear you before you die. 3:03 a.m. The valley below him flickered, like someone turned the brightness up, then snapped it off. And in that moment, Evan finally saw them. At first glance, they looked like trees, stretched bark. elongated limbs, still as trunks. But their movement betrayed them, too fluid, too quiet, like something pretending to be still. They slithered in vertical motion, up the sides of trees, not down, merged into bark, flattened, camouflaged not by color, but by thought. Your eyes told you there was nothing there, until they moved, until you blinked, and then you couldn't unsee them. From his tower, Evan watched as one of them dropped, softly, silently, onto something below. There was no scream, only a convulsion, a shape struggling against the ground, then ceasing. The creature bent low, its limbs retracted like cords, and it began to eat, not like an animal, no tearing, no chewing. It pressed its face against the victim's skull, and after a few seconds, the victim's face changed. It smiled, not in fear, not in pain, in recognition. Evan turned off the scope, but it didn't help, because now, when he looked out with his own eyes, he could see them just fine. They had finished hiding. They didn't need the trees anymore. We've examined the footage, what little we could recover. We've slowed it frame by frame. The moment of feeding, that single point where the creature and the victim touch, there's a shimmer, a flicker, and then two signatures, identical. One walks away, one doesn't, but both carry the same heat, the same weight, the same movements, until one vanishes from the spectrum entirely. The logs refer to this as the skin pass, a term found in 3 other tower reports dating back to the early 80s. When it's feeding, don't blink. If it sees you looking, it remembers. And if it remembers you, it follows. Evan's last sighting included a line he scratched directly into the tower's eastern wall. Not in a notebook, not in his log, in the wood. It knows where I watch from. It doesn't need to climb. It just needs a voice. This is MindFuel. We preserve what the official record refuses to acknowledge. We tell the stories that survive in scratches and radio bursts. Subscribe now, because what's coming next is already wearing us. There's no emergency protocol for what Evan Harper saw, no code, no handbook page, no dispatch phrase for "they've finished feeding, and now they're looking at me." 3:57 a.m., his final transmission, unscheduled, unacknowledged, sent on a secondary channel rarely used outside of base evacuations. The voice on the tape isn't the calm, steady Evan we've heard before. It's different now, not panicked, not hopeless, resigned, certain. This is Tower 9. I see 6 of them. They finished eating. They're standing still now, not watching the tree line, not scanning for movement. They're looking at me. He doesn't wait for a response, doesn't sign off, doesn't follow protocol. Instead, he reaches beneath the desk, pulls the casing off the tower's archival unit, rewires the uplink manually, and sets the system to auto-upload all tower logs to a satellite network used only during wildfire evacuations. The system shouldn't have even been active, but someone had activated the emergency failsafe remotely hours before. We don't know who or how, but the logs made it out. And within 5 minutes, Evan was gone. He doesn't take the main stairs, doesn't grab his pack, doesn't bring food, just a red flare, a field knife, and the emergency beacon tucked in his boot, a device that never once sent a signal. The tower's interior camera, motion-triggered, low resolution, captures Evan descending in a blur. But for one frame, a single corrupted moment, you can see something above him. Not on the catwalk, not climbing, hovering, an outline, inverted, breathing. Its ribs expand in rhythmic bursts. The mouth, too wide, too still, no features, just a stretched patch of skin where a face should be, except the skin twitches, like something underneath it is trying to get out. Evan never turns around. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe that's what it does. Maybe once you've seen it feed, it doesn't need to chase you. It follows inside. He runs into the woods, past the kill circle, across the scorched ridge where grass no longer grows. His boots barely leave prints. Too fast, too reckless. The mic on his beacon records the last 32 seconds before the signal cuts. Evan, I'm not going to make it. I can hear it above me. Not behind, not ahead. Above. It's speaking in my voice. It's saying my thoughts before I do. I think it's already a whisper. Let me wear you better. That was Evan Harper's final moment on any official record. When the dispatch team arrived 5 days later, the tower was locked, empty, logs wiped, mirrors smashed, the floor scratched with dozens of gouged letters. Not me, not me, not me, not me. No body was recovered. No boots, no blood, just one flare, burned down halfway, left sticking upright in the soil, exactly where the breathing stopped. We believe the upload was intentional. We believe Evan wanted us to know, to understand, to remember. But the question isn't what happened to Evan Harper. The question is, who finished the last page of his log? Because that page wasn't written in his handwriting. It was written in perfect mirror script, and it ended with, "They didn't chase me. I let them in. Now I can see forever." This is MindFuel. We document the lost. We follow their last steps. And when we find their story, we don't run from it. We archive it, because the ones that vanish in the trees, they don't always stay there. Subscribe now, because what comes next is no longer alone. There are towers they never reopen, towers that become blank zones on the map, deleted coordinates, redacted paperwork. Tower 9 was supposed to be one of them, but someone signed an order, someone gave clearance, and someone sent a replacement. His name was Ranger Colton Hayes. 32. 2 years with the Bureau. No family listed. Volunteered for reassignment. Said he wanted a quieter post. He arrived just before dusk. No escort. No contact with base. He didn't even report in on standard frequencies. But 2 days later, this broadcast was intercepted by a private ham operator logging weather anomalies near the Montana-Idaho border. The voice was calm, measured, but the transmission was laced with background distortion. Not static, not wind, a clicking, like something gnashing teeth. Slowly. Final transmission, Tower 9. Date unconfirmed. This is Ranger Colton Hayes. I was sent to replace Officer Evan Harper. Towers intact. Weather instruments are shot. No signal from adjacent towers. There's movement below the ridgeline. But it's too uniform. They're not tracking me. They're waiting. If anyone gets this, Tower 6 is compromised. They're still here. The recording ends mid-sentence. Not cut, not jammed, interrupted, as if something placed a hand over the mic and just listened. There's one final camera feed, pulled from a drone doing thermal sweeps of the valley. Footage flagged, then buried. It pans slowly toward Tower 9, up the stairwell, across the catwalk, then pauses, just beneath the upper observation window. For 2 frames, barely a second, a figure stands behind the glass. Too tall, unmoving, its face hidden in shadow, but its hand is held up to the glass, palm flat, fingers long, and written across the fogged pane, "Welcome back." The signal from Tower 9 remains open. No voice, no motion, just an unbroken stream of low static, but buried deep in that static at exactly 3:33 each night. You can hear something humming. The same song Evan Harper used to whistle as he logged his reports. This is MindFuel. We do not tell stories to scare you. We tell them because someone, somewhere, left them behind to be remembered. Subscribe now, because the forest doesn't forget, and neither should you. They're feeding now. Thousands of acres, dozens of towers, hundreds, missing. Each report scrubbed, each call buried, each face forgotten, until it's worn again. And now, they're feeding again. You've been watching MindFuel, where the stories don't stop when the cameras cut, where silence means someone chose not to speak. But the forest always remembers. Subscribe, because the next voice on the radio might sound like yours.